Welcome to Book Banter with me, your host, Dianne Burckhardt. I hope you will join me every Wednesday as we explore all things to do with, well, books. Let's get on with our show today. Hello, my happy people. Today is December 3rd, 2025. And I am so excited. We are in the last 2 episodes of this season. We have a special guest today, and we have one more author coming up next week, and we are done for this season. I cannot believe that it is already over. I have spoken to so many amazing authors this year. It has been absolutely incredible, and we still have 2 more fabulous authors to bring to you. And starting off today with another special guest. He has been on the show before in season 3, episode 135, where we talked about 2 of his books that he had out previously. But today we're talking about his new book that drops this week. You definitely want to go check it out. But first, check out this interview. Please welcome to Book Banter with Dianne Burckhardt, Dr. David Weill. And since you have been on the show before, you know that the way that I usually like to start these interviews out is just to have my guests tell everyone who you are and what you do.
I'm David Weill. I am a transplant physician who runs a consulting practice helping transplant programs improve, and I'm an author as well.
And this is actually your second time on my podcast. The first time was last season for episode 135, and you had previously written a memoir called Exhale, but you were on the show to promote your new fiction novel called All That Really Matters. How has the sales for that one been going?
Really great. So much so that the publisher has asked me to write a sequel to it, which I'm working on right now. So I just got a book deal a few months ago to write a sequel to All That Really Matters. So I'm busy working on that now, while this third book is coming out in December. I'm sure your listeners will be familiar with the cadence of all of this, but that's what I'm doing right now.
I have to admit, whenever we were talking about All That Really Matters, it seemed like it was something that could potentially turn into a series. Would you want to do that if your publisher is interested?
Yeah, the publishing house does seem to be interested in that. I certainly am focused right now on the second story, the sequel. But I can imagine that I could write a few more of those as well. So there's a lot to be learned about how to write a series and how to do a series. And I think that I'm delving into that now. But I'm so focused on the second story that I haven't even gotten to contemplate a third, fourth, fifth story yet.
Now, your earlier books explored the medical field that you have spent your life in and the ethical side of transplant medicine, as well as human experiences that go along in that field. Now, your new book seems to be an even more personal journey for you, if that's even possible. It explores faith and family and belonging. But what made you choose now to write that story?
It's a great question. I feel like in a lot of ways I'm exploring topics that have been important to me my whole life and just now getting to put them on the page. I think that while my professional career was obviously very important for me and it motivated me to write a lot of the stories related to it, I felt like also when practicing transplantation, there was a religious or spiritual component to it. I couldn't help but think that. And it got me to really examine my own faith more closely than I ever had. And it is a question, though, that's nagged at me since I was a little boy, because I came from a mixed religious background, if you will, and both of my parents didn't practice and chose not to practice very intentionally. So we were raised without any religion at all, my sisters and I. And it's something that never sat well with me. So I decided to really explore it in a full long-form book.
Mm-hmm. Your new book, Tell Me I Belong, A Journey Across Faiths and Generations. That subtitle suggests both an internal search and a broader reflection on your own heritage. What does belonging actually mean to you at this stage in your life?
Well, you're very perceptive because I think it really is my own, personal search and my own kind of personal exploration of my own faith. But it also, I think at this stage in my life, as I round 60, I am very interested in what group I belong to, what my heritage is, what made me. And
Hmm.
I know that those seem like kind of navel-gazing kind of questions, but I think now more than ever, we see tribalism out there catching fire, really, sometimes literally. And I think that to me, it's always been important to be able to define really my background. So you're right. The book is a religious exploration in certain ways, but it's also an exploration of the people that came before me. And I became very interested in the lineage that I had. I mean, I found out, for instance, that my family went back to the 1300s in Germany and was able to trace them all the way back. And so the readers will be happy to know I don't go in excruciating detail from 1300 all the way to the present time, but I more use it as a backdrop to say, hey, these are the people that I came from, and it's a pretty well defined and I thought very rich heritage. But the book's not it's not a genealogy book, but I use that research as kind of a way to inform the rest of the book.
When you were doing your research on your family, were there moments that you discovered in your family history that you found especially hard to include or just to revisit?
Well, yes. I think that, what's interesting about my family, I think, is that the Weill family had this 600-year run, 600 plus year run in Germany. And then all of a sudden during World War II, and we all know the horror that happened there,
Hmm.
the family just it fell apart. I mean, it dispersed. A lot of the people didn't make it. It was the end of a centuries old family. And that was that. Even though I knew that intuitively was true, when you get to know these people on the page a little bit and you get to study them and read about them, it feels much more personal than it had when I just had some sense that we were affected by the Holocaust.
Hmm.
So
When you get specifics.
yeah, when you sort of know that this is happening to real people and real people that you were fairly closely related to, it wasn't like it was thousands of years ago and you can't
Hmm.
identify with any of them. I mean, it was my grandfather who I knew, and it was his relatives. So it hit home pretty intensely, and I must say I felt it pretty deeply.
You've had success writing both fiction and memoir. Which do you find more difficult to write?
It's interesting. I have more fun writing fiction.
Hmm.
It's just I like making up stories. I like not knowing when I sit down every day where the story is going to go. I like writing dialogue a lot, as it turns out. I think that I'm going to be probably somebody that goes back and forth a little bit because there are nonfiction topics that I like to explore. But I think in just straight out enjoyment, I think I enjoy writing fiction more.
How is your process different whenever you write fiction or a memoir?
It seems like the nonfiction work is it's not outline oriented so much as I know the story and I know the direction and I just have to sit down and write it. I know the story. I think what's neat about fiction is that I don't know the story. And I have some vague sense of where the characters might want to go, but I don't have a real good sense of where they're going to go. And so when I sit down to write, I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen. Whereas in the nonfiction books that I've written, I pretty much know what I'm going to write that day.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of getting it on the page, which I'm sure you know is no easy trick.
Which one seems to go faster for you? Whenever you're doing something that you already know where it's going to go and you know what's going to be told, or when you're just making it up?
Yeah, maybe other fiction writers wouldn't say this, but I think the fiction can go really fast. And I think it's because you're making the story up. You don't know exactly where it's going to go. It's just more of a flow. Whereas
Hmm.
I think that nonfiction work sometimes takes so much contemplation and so much research and understanding. And it's a deep, for me, it's kind of a deeper process. Maybe that means I'm not there yet as a fiction writer, but it feels like a deeper process to me to write nonfiction. I'm sure that there's many novelists that would vehemently disagree with that.
There seems to be just about as many different opinions on that kind of thing as there are authors.
I would imagine, yeah.
So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about Tell Me I Belong, A Journey Across Faiths and Generations.
So the book really started with a question that had nagged at me my entire life, as I mentioned, all the way back to when I was a little boy, when people would say, "What religion are you?" And they would ask that on the playground when I was little, when I got older, when I was on dates, when I was at cocktail parties, when I was sitting next to somebody at a dinner party. So, what religion are you?
Mm-hmm.
And I really didn't have an answer for that. My father, agnostic Jewish Holocaust survivor, turned his back on his religion, as many folks that experienced that did.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother grew up in Selma, Alabama, as a devout Southern Baptist young girl, went to church every day, as she said, every time the doors were open,
Mm-hmm.
and turned her back on her religion as a young woman, largely because of the civil rights movement. She felt very deeply that the church wasn't doing enough in terms of speaking out about the injustice that she had seen in Selma, which I think everyone knows was a real hotbed
Mm-hmm.
for racism and all sorts of other things. And so when they had children of their own, these two people, they decided, and I write a scene in the book where they just basically sat us down. I think I was 9 years old and said, "Do you want religion in your life?" And I said, "No, I think I'm good, and I'd rather go play with my friends, you know."
Mm-hmm.
And that was it. And it was never really discussed again in our household. And it never sat well with me. I wanted an answer to that question, what religion are you?
So, where have you found your faith? Do you have one that you particularly prescribe to, or are you more spiritual, still seeking?
Well, it kind of went here and there. I married a devout Catholic, had children who were baptized, and I was always sort of on the side of their religious experience. On Sundays, for instance, would go off to the hospital and see my patients. They would go off to church. And I felt very disconnected to them in that way.
Mm-hmm.
So about, I don't know, 10 years ago, I found that when I was going through a crisis of my own related to the death of my father and my career wasn't going so great, I was having sort of emotional problems because of the patients we were taking care of were so sick, and I just couldn't stand the thought of losing any of them,
Yeah.
which for a transplant doctor is not a great thing because
Yeah.
it's inevitable. So I sought religion and I decided, well, my family's Catholic, and to be closer to them, maybe I should become Catholic. And so I went through a whole year-long process that I write about in the book of really kind of digging into Catholicism and trying to understand it, and was ultimately baptized. And I write quite a bit about what that experience meant to me. It meant a lot. It did. But then when Exhale, the book you referenced earlier, my memoir, was coming out, my publicist, who is Jewish, pointed out something to me. And he pointed out that, by the way, if your mother had converted to Judaism before she married your father, you're Jewish. You
Mm-hmm.
know, if your mother's Jewish, you're Jewish. And I said, well, I don't think she converted. Then I realized suddenly, I don't know if she did or she didn't. And I called her up and I write about that scene in the book as well. And it turns out, yep, she had converted to Judaism. Just we just didn't know.
Oh,
At least I
wow.
didn't. And so that's what kind of kicked off the book. I kind of decided right then and there that I was going to write about this.
And how old were you when you found that out?
Old. So this was in 2021. So what's that, 4 or 5 years ago? So I was in
Yeah.
my late 50s. So I'd gone through my entire life not knowing that. And, you know, maybe it wasn't relevant to a lot of people to know that, but it was relevant to me to know that.
What was it like being a seasoned adult and
Yeah.
finding out something so important about yourself like that?
It was jarring. I mean, one of my sisters seemed to know that, or at
Hmm.
least had a vague idea of it, and one didn't. And somehow it went straight by me. I don't know how that happened really, but it went straight by me. And so it was kind of jarring, you know, because I was sort of settled into my Catholicism at that point.
Yeah.
I had an answer to the question. People would say, "What religion are you?" And I'd say, "Catholic." And it was actually fairly peaceful. And
Hmm.
then this happened. And then that ultimately led to my wanting to write about it.
So has that completely altered your point of view on religion?
It has. I have to admit. I mean, I think it wasn't just that moment that altered it, but it's also doing this book really, changed the way I think about religion generally and my own specifically. And so I couldn't really have spent 2.5 years, I think, writing this book without it impacting me in very profound ways. And it did. I understood my family. I thought a lot about religion. I talked to a lot of people. In the course of the book, the reader will kind of see I move geographic locations because I'm on this search and I'm really moving around the world, really, talking with various people, seeing various things. And it was very much a book that was in motion, if you will, if that makes sense. And I'm trying the whole time to figure it out. And, it brought me all over this country. It brought me back to Germany. It brought me to Israel. It brought me pretty much all around the globe.
So do you think you have found where you belong?
I do. I do. I mean, I think ultimately, given my heritage, given where I come from, given all that I learned, I can identify as Jewish and feel like that's where I am. And I think it ultimately makes the most sense.
Well, and that's the one thing that whenever I get into discussions with people, I always just say, I think it doesn't really matter which religion that you
Yeah,
belong to, as long as that one gives you peace, it gives you
yeah.
comfort, and it gives you direction in your life.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I really couldn't agree more. I think what happened is when I first started writing the book, I thought it was going to end with some sort of universal acceptance of all religions, and it doesn't really make any difference. And we're all more alike than we are different, and those kinds of things.
Hmm.
But as I went on and I started to understand the people from whom I came, I didn't feel like I was going to be able to sort of be undifferentiated with regard to religion. I
Hmm.
felt like it was kind of already in the cards. I mean, it was part of me, it was part of my DNA. I got a lot of pictures of my ancestors that look like me.
Hmm.
It just became undeniable, really. And I wasn't trying to deny it. I just didn't really understand it. But it sort of became undeniable about where I came from and who I was.
Well, and for a large part of that information, you didn't know.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And as it turns out, what I found interesting is, and I'm sure a lot of authors do that, they talk to, you're at a social gathering and people say, "What are you working on?" And you tell them. And a lot of people seem to have had a very similar struggle with religion. And for years and years, I thought it was just mine. I really did. I thought, well, most people probably have this figured out, but I don't. And as it turns out, I talked to a lot of people along the way
Yeah.
that had the exact same issue. And that was a real revelation, I think, in writing this book.
So, well, I can tell you, I'm the same way because I was not really raised in a specific church. My parents were not churchgoers, pretty much. They
Yeah.
were like, okay, we want you to experience all different kinds of things. So they would send me and my sister to Catholic church with our next door neighbors. They would send us to a Methodist church with the people across the street. They would send us to like a non denominational Christian church with our cousins. They wanted us to experience all of them and find what spoke to us.
Yep.
But there was that weird kind of disconnect that why isn't our family all in one thing?
Right. Exactly.
It's like,
Yeah.
but I did get to learn a lot about comparative religious studies.
Yeah. That's exactly right. Right.
Whenever somebody reads your book, what do you hope they take away from it?
I wrote this in the author's note up front, which I really enjoy writing, by the way, any author's note, because it kind of frames, what you're trying to do. And I guess it's up to the reader to see if you actually did it or not.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to really talk specifically to people that might be having similar struggles and that it's okay, that
Mm-hmm.
it's not, that this is part of our journey. we can learn things, we can actually search and explore, and it's really okay. It doesn't have to be anxiety producing, it doesn't have to be a drag. It can really be quite okay. And I was hoping that at the end of the story, somebody would put the book down and say, okay, well, this guy searched around and it looks like he, found what he was looking for, and that's great. Maybe I can do the same thing with whatever, whether it's religion or something else. If you put your mind to it, you can really find what you're looking for, no matter what you're searching for.
Obviously, this had a very profound benefit for you going through all this process as a person, but did it also change you as a storyteller and an author?
I think so. I mean, it's interesting, and I didn't have any concept of this a few years ago when I started writing. I think each book is its own project, but I notice, and I like to think this is true, that as I'm writing, I'm developing as a writer too. It reminds me a lot when I was learning medicine. You're not very good at it when you're in residency, say, and then even after you're finished residency, you're still learning a lot. You're just not there yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it's kind of the same thing. I'm developing my own style. I'm actually, I think, I'll say immodestly, improving, but I'm not there yet. And I think that's very interesting. I think what's going to be a challenge is my nonfiction voice versus my fiction voice, especially because I'm telling my fiction through first person.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's a little bit challenging because I have to get inside this guy's brain really to write first person fiction. Whereas I don't have to really try so hard when I'm writing nonfiction because it's me.
It is crazy how hard it is to remember to stay in first person.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So you would think that one would be the easy one.
You really would. I mean, I remember when I was writing All That Really Matters, and I was sending, drafts and all that stuff, and the copy editor would actually catch third person, and I was like, how in the world did this happen? I've read this thing, 10,000 times, and I'm still catching third person instead of, I'm saying Joe, main character's name is Joe. It's quite a marvel. One day I'm going to write a book in third person. Maybe it'll be a lot easier. I don't know.
And something that you said really kind of hit with me because I was thinking, I know people have always told me that they call it practicing medicine because you're always learning. There are always new discoveries. You're always learning new stuff. So you never finish learning how to be a good doctor. You're always learning.
Right.
So I was thinking we should probably start a new trend of calling it practicing author. Instead of published author, you're a practicing author because it seems like no matter what, you're always learning more no matter how much you have done.
I think that that's really right. I mean, medicine's interesting because you get fooled so many times. You get fooled less as time goes on, but you still get fooled. It's a human body reacting differently at different times to different things, and it's fairly easy to understand. But I've heard writers talk about when they start a new book, and I always think that's a very interesting period of all of this.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like they're starting over again and they've done nothing before that. Even very accomplished authors have told me that, that they sit down to write a new book. They're not even sure if they can do it.
Yeah.
And they've had several New York Times bestsellers, and they sit down and they're just not sure if they can do it again. And I find that interesting. I never really had that experience in the hospital, thankfully. I mean, I was pretty sure that once I hit a certain point that I could do it every day. But I think there's some built-in insecurity about being a writer that I find interesting.
Oh, yeah. I've spoken to a couple of authors who have 40, 50 books out. They have multiple bestsellers. And they're talking about, I sit down to write a new one and I still have doubts. And I'm like, you have no idea how comforting that is to me.
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. I always figured, and every writer has imposter syndrome. I have quite a bit of it because writing has been a second career for me, not a first. And I'm aware of that. But I'm also amazed to hear stories of people, it is their first career and they have imposter syndrome, which I think is unbelievable, really, given the accomplishments of some of these folks.
It is incredible, some of the authors who still doubt their work whenever they have multiple bestsellers. At some point, I would hope that all of them realize how good they really are.
Yeah. I mean, and then on the other hand, of course, I hear from my editor at the publishing house that, she, I think, gets tired of certain authors' egos at times. So I guess it kind of works both ways.
Yeah. Luckily, I haven't talked to any of those authors yet.
Well, you may be careful in how you select your guests. So,
Now seems like the perfect time to do our 5 quick questions that never turn out to be quick, but I'm just really nosy and love asking them. Are you
sure.
ready?
Yes.
So, question 1. If you could give your children one talent, what would it be?
Take risks.
Oh, good one. So that was one of those things I always tell people. I have never regretted stupid things that I've done, but I have regretted the stupid things I didn't try to do.
You said it. I mean, that's really it. I worry about that. I don't know if it's generational or if I'm just, getting older and looking at younger people, but I think there is some risk aversion among the generation behind us. I think it's probably multifactorial, but I really would love to see the kids, my own daughters who are 23 and 20, take more risk in their life.
Yeah, I think we got it a little bit easy being Gen X. We're all big risk takers.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's right.
Question 2. What is one piece of advice that you have given, even though you know you're right, you don't think people always follow it? And I know being a doctor, you probably have a lot of these.
And quit smoking.
Yeah.
Um, One piece of advice that I've given that folks don't follow,
Mm-hmm.
well, I think a big one, and I'm actually giving a TED talk about this next month in Georgia. Actually, it's not next month, it's in 2 weeks, is live every day like it would be your last.
Mm-hmm.
And I say this lovingly, and I do this as well. We're a society of time wasters.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw in my practice where people were very sick, they might die. And I had this question I would ask them, what would you do if today was your last day? And it really got me thinking about what I would do if today was my last day. And it also helped me learn a lot about what the patient valued the most.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what I really learned is that to live life with a certain urgency. And I don't know if a lot of people are doing that. Some people are, but I like to think that the best way to live life is with some urgency because, it is a fairly limited time we're here.
I absolutely agree with you. I don't know if you know this or not, but whenever I was 35, 36, going through all my brain surgeries, I died at one point.
Oh, really?
And I always tell people when I was laying in that bed feeling myself dying, I didn't sit there and think about all the stupid things that I did.
Right.
I thought about all the things that I was too scared to try.
Yeah.
And whenever I got better, I was just absolutely determined. It's like, I'm not going to be afraid to try stuff anymore. I have done some of the craziest things, and some of them have turned out wonderful, and some of them, didn't. But I don't have any regrets about things that I didn't try.
Yeah. I mean, that's well said. And you probably, with that experience, then have a lot to teach me and everybody else about it. So I feel bad that I'm sitting here preaching to you about that. So,
But that just shows, even if you don't go through that kind of world altering experience that I did, you can still come to that same conclusion.
that's right.
So, question 3. If your imagination had a junk drawer, what would we find in there?
Do I have to answer that one? No, I'm just kidding. Um, my imagination actually does have a junk drawer, and it's got tons of journals, notebooks, whatever you call them, with new book ideas
Mm-hmm.
in them. And that's basically, I'm a fairly open person. That would be something I don't want people to read.
I was actually kind of hoping you were going to say that there was an idea for a zombie book that you never wrote.
No, no. As much as I would like to write some kind of fantasy book or something, I would be wholly incapable of doing so. No, I think there's something about having something to scribble on and having it be yours only
Mm-hmm.
until you're ready for it. So it does sit in a drawer. And I scribble in it good ideas, both alongside bad ones, professional ideas alongside very personal ones.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my real junk drawer.
since you have been on the show before, I went a little bit weirder with a lot of the questions this time, especially since this is going to air at the end of the season. I wanted to have some really fun questions for you.
Good. I'm glad. I like it.
So, question 4. If you had to live your life over again, what is one thing you hope would not change the second time around?
Well, the first thing that occurs to me is my two daughters, followed second closely by this career that I had in the hospital. It was relatively short. I mean, if you call 20 years of practicing transplant medicine short, it felt like 50, but it was the experience of a lifetime, the education of a lifetime, what people go through. Well, two groups of people, the people getting the transplant, the people delivering the transplant. And what you learn about human nature and what people tell you about life, I find irreplaceable. And in fact, I left that practice about 10 years ago, and I think about it every day. And it's very, very hard to replace. So I would do that all over again, even though I didn't sleep a lot and I worked too much and all sorts of other things, but it was irreplaceable.
I would think that with the level of stress that comes along with that kind of a career, seeing as how you do end up having a large mortality rate within the people that you're working with and all of the long hours and everything that you had to deal with, that the 20 years should be counted more like multiples, like each year would be 5 years.
Yeah, I think it is dog years kind of thing. When I finished residency to the time I left Stanford, it was exactly 20 years.
Wow.
And it really was enough. I mean, it was enough. I mean, physically, emotionally, every other way. My daughters were growing up. I wasn't seeing a lot of them,
hmm
but it felt like a whole long career where you retire when you're 65 or whatever people do, and they have a party and a gold watch and everything else.
Yeah.
Uh, it really felt like I was done, like, okay, that was it. I did that for a long time. I got a lot out of it. It was done.
Well, I'm sure there are lots of patients and families who are very glad that you spent 20 years doing that.
Well, I've gotten the kindest emails, letters, pictures, and I continue to from my patients. They also like to read my books, which is nice. And they've really helped me more than I've helped them, I'm sure. So I'm grateful for that.
So now question 5, I'm asking everybody the same question because I'm going to be putting a list in our year-end book buying guide of author recommendations to readers. So whenever somebody asks you for a book recommendation, who's the first author that you think of?
Well, I really like Dani Shapiro. Your listeners may be familiar with her, but I like her works of fiction and nonfiction. I like my friend Abraham Verghese, who I worked with at Stanford, who's written some really big books, obviously, both fiction and nonfiction. As good as his fiction is, I like his nonfiction even better. I think he wrote a book called The Tennis Partner, which is an experience he had working with a young man in the hospital. And it's literally the best book I've ever read about addiction, which I think is important in our society.
Oh, definitely.
So I would point to those two. Whenever they publish books, I get right on them. I don't delay.
So now tell everybody again when Tell Me I Belong, A Journey Across Faiths and Generations is going to be available.
December 9th, wherever you buy books, and I'm going to be busy out on tour December, January, February at various spots. And if you go to my website, you can find all of it. It's just davidweill.com, pretty easy. And I'm out there. So come see me.
And where can they buy your books?
Wherever really books are sold, they'll obviously be on the online platforms, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Book Alley, everywhere. But this one will also be in a lot of local bookstores. We're going to do a lot of independent bookstore work as well in several cities, and it's going to be out pretty easily. If you go to my website, it kind of links you to everywhere that you can buy them. So that's probably the easiest thing to do.
Now, would you ever do an audiobook that you narrate yourself?
Yeah, I did that with my first book, Exhale. And while it was a lot of work, it was actually enjoyable at the end of it all. This book, the publisher and I decided that it would be best if somebody else narrated it. And it was largely, I wish I could say it was a complicated decision with a lot of factors involved, but it was largely due to scheduling.
Hmm.
It does take a while to do it, and I'm pretty busy at this point, and I just couldn't fit it in. So somebody else is narrating it, but I enjoy it. I mean, I think it's nice, especially with memoir, to have it in the author's voice.
When you did your first one, how long do you think it actually took you to record the whole book?
I know how long it took. It was 20 hours to get 8 hours of audio.
I had spoken with a couple of other authors, and I don't think people really realize how much time you have to spend reading and recording and re-recording. And
Yeah.
it's a long process. And then after you get it all recorded, there has to go through the editing. And there may be more recording after you've done the editing.
It really was pretty tedious, and I'm not great with tedium generally, but it was nice at the end. I mean, I had, I don't really consume audiobooks, but people who do, told me it was nice to hear me narrate it and things like that. So, I mean, I was happy with it at the end, but am I totally disappointed that I'm not going to narrate this one? Not really, because it is a lot of work.
Hmm. When do you think you might be looking at a publication for your next fiction novel?
Yeah, the sequel, the publisher wants it out in late 2026, which seems extraordinarily fast, but that's certainly the goal, and I wouldn't mind seeing that either. I'd love to keep on sort of a regular cadence with this book out in late 2025, and the next one out late 2026. But if it pushed a bit into 2027, that wouldn't shock me. But we'll see. I'm going to keep writing, and that's the key. That's the key.
So that is a pretty good turnaround for traditional publishing. That shows that they have some real interest in your work, that they're wanting to get it
Yeah.
out that fast.
Yeah, yeah. I think it took the sales, quite frankly, took us a little bit by surprise just because, I was a first-time novelist and, I'm a transplant doctor and have written about my own experience. So we didn't really know how this one was going to do, but it really has done well. So we're happy about it. And if it turns into a series, that would be great. I like the characters.
Yeah,
So
they're
that's
good
good.
characters. It's a good story.
Thank you.
Now, whenever you get ready to come out with the next one, you'll have to come back and we'll talk about that one again.
I'd love to if you'll have me.
Absolutely. Every time. Thank you so much for doing this with me today. I love talking to you about your work.
Thanks, Diane, and I appreciate the thoughtful questions. They were really great.
So there you have it, folks. My interview with the incredible Dr. David Weill. Be sure to go to his website and check out all of his fabulous works. I swear every time that I talk to this guy, he's really nice. He has had an illustrious career in medicine. He's a fantastic author. I'm searching for something to find that this guy does not do well. Be sure to go and check out all of his social media, support him, and check out his books. You will not regret it. And don't forget, he's also in this year's Book Banter magazine year-end holiday shopping guide, which is available right now on our website at burckhartbooks.com/book-banter-magazine. Or you can just go to burckhartbooks.com and go up to Book Banter Productions in the menu, and that will open another menu that takes you to the magazine. You can buy it directly from our website for just $1 right now until December 5th. At that time, it will go back up to the regular cover price of $2.99. You will get the right to either look at this magazine as a flip book online, or you can download your own PDF copy that has clickable links and all of the information about every single author we have spoken to this year on Book Banter with Dianne Burckhardt. We also have book reviews, some fun pages that you can download and print to do at home, and so much more. I put a lot of hard work into this 132-page magazine, and I really want to share it with you. So go get it right now off of our website for just $1 until December 5th. And then after that, you can get it for $2.99. There There is so much going on here behind the scenes. I wish I could tell you about everything, but I just do not have enough time to get it all in this episode. But be sure to come back next week when we will be talking to our season finale best-selling author, Melissa Payne. We're going to be talking to her about her latest book, In the Beautiful Dark. And this book sounds so amazing. I'm probably going to be reading this one over the holidays for my own pleasure because it really is kind of like right up my alley for the kind of stuff I love to read. Now, if you check out her pages in our Book Banter magazine holiday book buying guide, you will also see information about other books that she has written, The Wild Road Home and A Light in the Forest. She has some wonderful books in her collection, and we're going to get into all of that next Wednesday. We're getting ready to go on hiatus until February when season 5 begins. And in that downtime, I'm going to be working on so many behind the scenes projects that we're going to be bringing to you. We're hoping to bring out Burckhardt Books' first romance book under D.S. Stevens. It'll be a paranormal romance, and it will be the beginning of a 7-book series. Depending on how the series goes, we might end up adding a few more books to there, but we'll see how the first one hits. We're hoping to have it out in time to be part of our Love Fest opening for season 5. I'm also going to be working on putting together a quick start media package creation class for authors so that they can better publicize their own work. So many authors get into this and they have no idea how to do the marketing. And I have more than 20 years experience in marketing, so I'm going to do some videos to try and help people get things set up to better promote their own work. We're going to be discussing how to create a one-sheet, how to judge your media photos. And the good news is you do not need to get studio-produced photos to have some great marketing photos of yourself. You can get some great photos just using your own cell phone. And we're going to show you how to do all of that in this quick start class. There's going to be other things, how to write press releases, how to set up your promotions before your book drops, and how to prepare for interviews on podcasts with magazines, newspapers, and how to secure those interviews. So we've got so many great things coming up, not to mention a app that I'm trying to build that would help people find the books to buy from all of the authors who have ever been on my podcast. So I really need to get busy. My downtime is not going to be downtime. It's just going to be off-air work, basically. But keep watching all of our social media because as these things become available, we're going to be announcing it there. Until next week, don't forget to come back for our season finale with Melissa Payne. You are going to love her. She was so much fun. I was editing this episode yesterday and I was laughing again so hard at some of the things that we got into. It was a great conversation and I can't wait to share it with you. She was a wonderful author to end this season with. So, you know what time it is, folks. It's time for y'all to go forth and be really happy.